My wife slept with a coworker while I was cooking her a candlelit dinner. Now I'm gone and she's crying alone in a hotel parking lot. I, 30-year-old male, discovered my 30-year-old female wife's affair after we'd been married for 3.5 years. I was working a contract job that required a good deal of travel at times, but also let me work from home whenever I returned. My wife had a high-paying job as a director at a technical sales firm. We had what I would have described as a great marriage, though things had gotten a bit strained, mostly because of my frequent work trips and her increasingly long work hours. Backstory: I met my wife, now ex, 5 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. We started talking and felt an instant connection. Honestly, I couldn't believe I was lucky enough to be with someone so beautiful and well-spoken. Somehow, she was drawn to my rough-around-the-edges personality. Once we started dating, it was intense. We couldn't get enough of each other. Every time we met at each other's apartments, things got heated quickly. We got married after 18 months of dating and moved into a spacious apartment while saving up to buy a house. After the first 3 years of marriage, things began to shift. I was still head over heels for her, but I noticed she started picking fights over small things. She would also snap at me whenever I brought up her late nights at work or how often she was going to work events. She insisted it was just part of paying her dues as she climbed the corporate ladder. That was always her go-to excuse. She claimed I had no right to question her since I was also away for work frequently. I told her I could reduce my travel time if needed. In truth, I had already cut back. By then, I was only gone for 3 to 4 days every 5 weeks. These arguments became repetitive and never really led anywhere. Looking back, I was completely clueless that she was having an affair. I never would have guessed, aside from the extended work hours and how our sex life was fading. I chalked it up to her being tired and overworked. Still, my confidence took a hit from being turned down so often when I tried to initiate intimacy. I never noticed any secretive texting or shady phone activity, but then again, she had a work phone and spent a lot of time in our spare bedroom, which she used as her home office. Around September of 2017, Kathy started coming home from work and heading right back out again, always claiming she had a work event to attend. What started as 1 night a week turned into 3 or more. I'm not naturally a jealous guy, but something felt off. I knew she'd probably get attention from men at her office. She was attractive, successful, and worked mostly with male executives. But she never seemed interested in anything but work. At least that's what I believed. My first real suspicion came about a month before D-Day. She had stopped by the store after work and asked me to help bring in the groceries. While I was grabbing some bags from the back seat of her car, something pink caught my eye underneath the front passenger seat. It was one of her bras. I recognized it instantly. She had a preference for lingerie from a specific boutique, and in hindsight I realized something else too. Whenever she was in the mood, she always took off her bra first, even before her clothes. That's just how she was. So seeing her bra shoved under the front seat hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't make sense of it. What was her bra doing there? I didn't touch it. I just left it. My stomach twisted, and my heart must have been racing, because when I came back into the kitchen with the grocery bags, Kathy looked at me and asked if I was okay. Said I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I brushed it off and told her I was fine. It took every ounce of control not to show the shock and betrayal I was feeling. That evening and the next was pure torture. I knew something wasn't right. I had to find out if she was cheating or if I was just being paranoid. I started going over everything again, trying to figure out what I had missed. I had no solid proof except for that bra. We lived in a fairly big city, and her office was downtown in a tall commercial building. I kind of let go of the affair suspicion for a while and thought maybe I just needed to show her more attention. So one Friday after work, I made a special dinner. I set the dining table with our nicest plates, real silverware, and candles. I even bought a good bottle of wine and a bouquet of roses. When she walked in after work, as usual, I pointed out everything I had set up for us. She gave me a half-hearted smile and said she was sorry, but had plans to meet her co-workers at a local hangout that evening. She offered to grab a quick bite with me before heading out, but said she needed to take a shower first. I felt my insides twist. I was completely speechless. I won't even describe the rage building inside me, but I had finally reached my breaking point. While she was in the shower, I grabbed my company cell phone and planted it in the back seat of her car. I'd been thinking about doing this for a while, using it to track her location from my personal phone. Then I went back inside and threw the meal and the flowers straight into the trash. She came out after her shower, all dressed up and looking amazing as usual. She said, "Okay, let's eat." I told her, "Never mind, just go out with your friends." She looked at me strangely and asked if I was mad. I told her I was just disappointed. Disappointed that she never wanted to spend time with me anymore. She got defensive and told me to stop acting like a child, making some snarky comment about me having a short fuse. I just stood there, letting it all settle in, and said, "Foolish me, I thought you might want to spend an evening together for once." She just smirked and left in a huff. I pulled out my personal phone and started tracking the location of my work phone. I saw that she stopped about 20 minutes away at the bar she often visited with her coworkers. I decided to drive out and see for myself. Sure enough, her car was in the parking lot. I parked across the street and waited, watching like some kind of stalker. I hated how it made me feel, but I told myself I needed to know the truth. About an hour later, I saw her come out of the bar with a man. He looked like one of the executives I'd seen from her office. He grabbed her waist, pulled her close, and kissed her. My stomach twisted, and I went completely numb. They walked to another car together and got in. I followed them from a distance. They drove for about 10 minutes, to, of course, a hotel. I pulled over near the hotel and watched them walk in hand. That was it. I'd seen enough. I felt like a complete idiot. I started pounding my fists against the steering wheel in fury. Something inside me just snapped. I don't know if I blacked out or had some kind of out-of-body moment, but I went blank. When I came back to myself, I decided I needed a drink. That's when my life took a turn I never expected. I just started driving, out of the city, away from everything, reliving what I had just seen, crying with rage. I drove about 30 miles toward the edge of town and found a quiet little bar. I walked in, sat down and ordered a drink. I must have looked awful because the female bartender commented that I looked like someone who just got the wind knocked out of him. I half smiled and said, "You could say that." A guy took the stool next to me and started chatting. I wasn't in the mood to talk, but there was something about him that made me feel at ease. We started talking, and eventually, the story of my wife's betrayal just spilled out. I told him how I didn't know what to do, how I just wanted to leave her and forget she ever existed. He clapped me on the back and said, "Buddy, you're not alone. That happened to me a few years back. Sometimes these things happen for a reason. And let me tell you, your life can go one of two ways now, better or worse. It's all up to you." Something about what he said shook me. I mean, I was still hurting, but I've always tried to see things from a logical perspective, and he was right. We finally introduced ourselves. His name was Ray. He was kind of a down-to-earth country guy, the kind of guy I could respect. Then he asked me, "So, when are you moving out?" I guess it had never really crossed my mind to think that far ahead. All I knew was that I couldn't stand to be around this woman anymore. I had this overwhelming fight-or-flight feeling pulsing through me. Ray looked at me with sympathy and said, "I feel for you, man. And listen, if it ever gets to the point where you feel like you just need to leave, I've got an idea. I have a travel trailer sitting on my property. It's not perfect and could use a little fixing up, but why don't you come check it out? See if you could see yourself living in it for a bit. Just something temporary. I'll make you a good deal on it. I even have a nice piece of land you can park it on. Honestly, it'd be doing me a favor to have someone keep an eye on it, and maybe it'll do you some good to get away from your current situation. Just something to think about." It took a moment for his words to sink in. The bartender, who had been listening in on our conversation, chimed in with a smile. "Hell, honey, if I had a way to get out when I was stuck with my crazy ex-husband, I would have jumped at the chance to live in that trailer, or anywhere, just to clear my head." It all felt surreal, like I had stumbled into the Twilight Zone, but maybe this was exactly what I needed. I told Ray I'd think about it, and maybe check it out. We went our separate ways after a while and made plans to meet at his place in a few days. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I had a bit of clarity, a possible way out of what felt like a nightmare mixed with heartbreak. One thing I knew for sure, I would never, ever want to be with my wife again. Cheating is one of the most disgusting betrayals to me, and it had always been the one thing I knew I'd never tolerate. I got home later than Kathy that night and sat quietly on the couch. She came out and asked where I'd been. I looked at her and asked where she had been. She casually replied, "You know, I went out for drinks." I looked her straight in the eye and asked, "Are you having an affair?" She looked a little taken aback but quickly regained her composure. "No," she said. "Why would you ask me that?" I told her someone I trust said she might be seeing someone from work. She immediately asked who told me. I said I couldn't reveal that. She scoffed and said I was being ridiculous. drunk, and delusional. Then she asked me where I'd been. I told her I went out to have drinks with some friends. She just stared at me, clearly wanting to ask more, but instead turned and went back to our bedroom. I slept on the couch that night. I had all the confirmation I needed that she'd been lying to me for months. I couldn't sleep at all. I kept picturing her in bed with that guy, and the thought made me feel sick, hurt, and humiliated. But then I started thinking about Ray's trailer. It was almost like a light bulb going off in my head. The idea alone made me feel a little better. Maybe something was wrong with me, but in the pain I was feeling, that fight-or-flight instinct had fully kicked in, and flight won. The next morning we barely spoke, and went through the weekend pretending like nothing had happened. A few days later, I followed through on my plan and met up with Ray at his place. He owned a nice ranch, and the trailer was actually in great condition. It was about 26 feet long and had all the basic necessities anyone would need. I'd traveled in one with friends back in college during spring break and really enjoyed it. So this wasn't unfamiliar. I made Ray an offer, and he accepted it. I practically got it for a steal. He gave me directions to his ranch property, and I drove out to see it. It was beautiful, full of trees, scrub brush, and even had hiking and biking trails nearby. The place bordered the foothills of a small mountain range. Ray had a small shack built on a hill that overlooked the land, with water and electricity already set up for the trailer. He even offered to tow the trailer over and get it set up for me. Over the next few weeks, I tried several times to get Kathy to admit the truth. I begged her to come clean, but all I got was relentless gaslighting. I even told her directly, if I found out she was cheating, there would be no turning back. Instead of owning up, she spiraled deeper into her affair fog and kept lashing out with denials so outrageous they were almost laughable. The worst part? I still had no solid physical proof, and I hated myself for not at least taking some photos of the two of them together. And as I continued to spiral through this emotional hell, I finally reached a clear conclusion. I wanted out of this marriage. Rather than telling Kathy how I felt, I just started making quiet moves. I began stealthily taking my belongings out of the apartment while she was at work and moving them into the trailer. It gave me a sense of control, like I was finally doing something to change my situation. I did notice a change in Kathy during this time. She started acting kinder, more affectionate, but in my mind, it was way too late. She was still going on those so-called company outings after work. I figured if she could have her evenings out, so could I. One night, as she was getting ready to head out, I got dressed too. She looked at me, puzzled, and asked where I was going. I told her I was meeting up with some friends. She began to ask more questions, but I cut her off, saying she didn't know them and wouldn't enjoy the shop talk anyway. It was the same line she used on me whenever I asked to join her office events. She looked a bit hurt and said, "Okay, have a nice time." I told her I definitely would. Between fixing up the trailer and hanging out with Ray at the bar, I started making new friends. It actually led to some fun nights with his circle of friends and family. Just in case anyone's wondering, I made a point to moderate my drinking. It would have been too easy to drown in self-pity, but I didn't want to go down that path. Around this time, Kathy told me she had an upcoming business trip. I asked who was going, and she listed the executive team and a few department heads. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Well, I hope you have a great time with your boyfriend." I regretted saying that almost immediately. It sparked a shouting match. Part of me wanted to know more about her affair partner, but Ray had already told me, "It doesn't matter who the other guy is. What matters is she chose to betray you. She burned the marriage down, and whether she admits it or not, that's on her." Honestly, Ray should write a book for people who've been betrayed. Her work trip gave me the perfect opportunity to get the rest of my things out. After she left, I gathered what was left, anything I still valued, and packed it all into my car. I didn't take any furniture or shared items, just my clothes, computers, and equipment. I had written a long letter at first, but after rereading it, I decided to keep it simple. I tore a sheet from a notepad and wrote, "I hope it was worth it." I placed my wedding ring on top of the note and left it on the kitchen table. The moment I stepped out of that apartment, I felt a massive weight lift from my chest. I felt free. No more pretending. No more second-guessing. I knew there would still be pain and healing ahead, but at least now I had space to breathe and figure things out. I needed her out of my life quietly and completely. I wasn't proud that I never forced a confession out of her or screamed at her until she admitted it. But somewhere along the way, I decided she didn't deserve that kind of emotional investment. She had disrespected everything we built together. All the future plans, the house we were saving for, The family we were supposed to have, that was gone. There's no going back. I didn't owe her anything now. She could deal with the consequences on her own. I didn't have a grand plan. I hadn't contacted a lawyer or anything like that. I just wanted clarity. And honestly, I was enjoying the trailer life way more than I expected. The fresh mountain air did wonders for me. That week, I started running again, and for the first time in a while, I felt alive. I ignored all of Kathy's texts while she was away. There wasn't much to respond to, just routine messages like, "We just landed," "having team dinner," and a few, "Where are you?" and "Let me know you're okay" texts. But the day she returned, my phone exploded. She texted non-stop and kept calling over and over. I ignored everything. By the second day, even her mom was calling. The only family I have is my dad, and we're not close, so she didn't bother trying to reach him. After a few tearful voicemails from her, I stopped listening altogether. She texted things like, "What is this? We need to talk," and "I don't know what you think you know, but there's nothing going on. I'm not involved with anyone. I'm not having an affair." After about a week of me ignoring her, she finally sent a message that read, "I'm sorry things got out of hand. I was involved with someone at work, but it meant nothing. I got caught up in work, and you were gone a lot. I just made a mistake. I was going to end it." A mistake? That was the confession I'd been waiting on all along, and somehow it made me despise her even more. Why couldn't she have just been honest? This wasn't the woman I once dreamed of building a life with, and mistakes don't last 6, 8, or 12 months. Her begging me to come back and work things out eventually became pathetic. After a couple of weeks of silence from her, I still refused to respond. I didn't want her to find out where I was living. I had no intention of letting her ruin the peace I had finally found. But soon enough, the tone of her texts changed from apologetic to angry. Messages like, "You're a coward," "You won't talk to me," "You don't care about us," and "Where are you? I can come to you. Damn it, Paul, please let's talk and fix things," started flooding in. I don't remember every message, but they were all full of excuses and almost no genuine remorse. I ignored it all, didn't let a single word stick. Finally, I changed my number. Kathy emailed me to say she'd hired a lawyer and was filing for divorce. I replied with one sentence, "Okay, sounds good." That triggered a flood of follow-up emails, begging me to come see her and discuss things. She realized it was going nowhere. Eventually, she wrote that if I agreed to an uncontested divorce, she wouldn't bother me again. I agreed. A few months later, I was legally and officially free. I never saw her again after I left the apartment. No final conversation, no closure. But I was okay with that. It seemed like closure mattered more to her than it did to me. There were a few months where I'd still think about her now and then. The pain would catch me off guard, like when a song came on the radio that we used to love. But with time, I just stopped thinking about her altogether. Actually, really good. I met someone. I was out running a trail just down from my place when I stopped to help a woman change a flat tire. We hit it off immediately. She's amazing and cute as hell. A few years younger than me, but she loves the way I live and even calls me her mountain man. I'm not rushing into anything serious, but I'm also not swearing off love. I'm still living in the trailer, and I have no plans to change that. Life is simpler now. I spend my days outdoors, and it's helped me let go of all the pain from my ex-wife, the betrayal, the heartbreak, everything. I know everyone deals with these things differently. I was fortunate not to have kids and to be just 3 years into the marriage when everything fell apart. I believe I made the right choice. You don't have to stay with someone who cheats on you. If something like this happens to you, please don't waste time dwelling on it. Just move forward. It gets better once you start working on yourself. I wish everyone out there the best life possible. Just wanted to post an update about where things ended up with my ex-wife. I've rewritten this story about 5 times just to make it readable. As I mentioned earlier, I had a strong feeling Kathy was trying to track me down. I had moved about 2 hours away from where we used to live. Then last weekend, I saw her in a coffee shop I frequent in the nearby town. I doubted that it was a coincidence. Thankfully, I left before she noticed me. That's when I heard someone shout, "Paul!" I turned and looked across the street. There she was, Kathy, my ex-wife, waving at me. Armageddon had officially arrived. I froze as she came running, crossing the street with her arms outstretched, like she expected me to embrace her. Instinct kicked in. I raised my hands, palms out, stopping her in her tracks. Her face fell instantly, and for a moment, she looked genuinely hurt. "Paul," she said softly, "I've been looking for you. I heard you moved out here and I had to see you." Can we talk? I felt like a trapped animal. I really did. But I gave in and said, okay, let's find a bench or something. We can talk for a bit. She asked if we could go to my place. I didn't hesitate. No, I said firmly. So she followed me down the block to a little bench outside a shop. She started by complimenting me, saying how much I'd changed, how she liked my beard, my new look. Typical flattery. She even said I looked more fit. She was laying it on thick, and I have to admit, she looked good, really good. She was wearing little white shorts, a tank top, and her hair was tied up in a ponytail, just how I used to like it. My guard went up instantly. I could feel her turning up the sex appeal. I had to mentally pull myself back and focus on why she was here. She began by apologizing for the affair. She said karma came for her hard after I left. Her company had found out about the affair and made things so uncomfortable that she eventually quit. The guy she had been seeing, her AP, was engaged at the time. He got a formal reprimand and was transferred to another department. He blamed her for having to move, and in retaliation, she told his fiancé everything. That led to their breakup. She dropped her head and started to cry. I just sat there staring off into the distance. I didn't say a word. After a moment she straightened up and looked at me. I asked her, "What do you want from me?" She said she never meant for an affair to happen. She felt like she got pulled in by all the politics and pressure at work. She claimed the AP had manipulated her with his charm and influence in the company, and that she had convinced herself she was using him just as much. She said she'd planned to confess, especially after I confronted her. But she couldn't handle her guilt, so she numbed it with after-work drinks. She said that after I left, she felt broken and stupid, like her heart had caved in. She cut things off with the AP right away, and since I wouldn't answer her calls or messages, she said she had to find me, to make things right, to see if we could possibly start fresh. She knew we were already divorced, but she wanted a clean slate. I just stared at her. Then I let her have it. I'm paraphrasing here, but what I said went something like this. How dare you think you can just show up here and expect me to forget everything? You think I can just forgive you for ruining our marriage? I told you, if you ever cheated, it was over. There's no forgiveness, no restart. You killed it. You destroyed us the moment you stepped out. How dumb do you think I am? I told her I had followed her that night. I saw her walk into that hotel with him. Did you know that? I asked. At that point, I realized I had started to raise my voice. A few people nearby had taken notice. She was sobbing. She grabbed my arm and for a moment I let her cry on my shoulder before gently pushing her away. She looked up, teary-eyed, and said, "I deserve all of this. I know I do, but can I at least take you to dinner? Or something? I don't want to leave. I want to talk more. I want to get everything out in the open. I need the time with you that I never got before. Please, Paul." She paused, choking back tears, then added, "I know you don't want to hear this, but I love you so much. I didn't even realize how deeply until you left. You broke me, and I know I broke you just as badly. I can't forgive myself, and I don't want to. Not ever." She began hyperventilating and crying so hard that I had no choice but to pull her up and hug her. I know. It sounds ridiculous. But in that moment, it felt like the only thing I could do to calm her down. And maybe for the first time I realized, yeah, I had broken her heart too, just like she broke mine. We started walking together. I found a quiet path nearby, and we walked slowly as things calmed down. I finally asked her, "How did you find me? Did you hire a private investigator or something?" She laughed through her tears and said, "No, I just thought," but the words caught in her throat. Then she looked down and added almost to herself, "I figured it out after I ran into Stacy a few weeks ago." She asked Stacy how I was doing, and Stacy accidentally let it slip that she had seen me. Kathy pressed her for every detail. Stacy didn't want to say anything, because I had specifically asked her not to, but Kathy wouldn't let up until she talked. All Stacy really knew was that she had seen me around town, and that I was living somewhere nearby. So Kathy had started coming to town on her days off, hoping to run into me. She blushed when she admitted that. I couldn't help but chuckle. Damn it, Stacy can't keep her mouth shut. We did end up going to dinner. Found a nice little restaurant with outdoor seating. I made sure we didn't have any alcohol. I didn't want her using drinks as an excuse to soften me up or claim she was too drunk to drive back. Surprisingly, we had a decent conversation. After dinner, I walked her to her car. She didn't want to leave. She pushed hard to stay longer. She swore she hadn't been with anyone else since I left, said over and over that I was the only one she wanted. I told her no, that it was still way too soon for me to even think about going down that road again. She begged to see me again. I stayed vague. I gave her my new email address. Nothing more. She asked for my phone number, but I told her no. I knew she'd flood it with calls and texts. She cried when I said that. Before leaving, she told me she'd be back next weekend and would email me the details of when and where to meet, if I was interested. I didn't give her a yes or no. Before she left, I asked her something directly. If I had been the one who cheated, would you have forgiven me? She thought about it and finally said, yes, in time, but only if we went to marriage counseling, only if we could really talk through the pain, and maybe even sign something binding to rebuild trust. I told her, okay, maybe I could do that. 5, 10 years from now. She replied, if that's what it takes, I'd wait. Then she took my hands, looked me dead in the eyes, and said something that truly caught me off guard. God damn it, Paul, she said. I will always love you, and I'll do anything to prove it. And then she left. I was completely thrown. The way she said it, it wasn't just emotion, it was conviction. Still, I couldn't picture myself getting back with her. Not now. I felt better overall, but I couldn't even imagine being friends with benefits. Maybe just friends. Someday. But even that's uncertain. Don't call me a fool, because I don't believe in second chances easily. They're rare in my book. Afterwards, I went for a long run, had a couple beers, and found myself in a good headspace. But the question lingers. Can anyone guarantee me that she wouldn't shatter that again? I don't know. I really don't. It's all still too fresh. But the one thing I do have now is time. Time to get clarity. Time to heal. Time to think. Okay, this will probably be my last update. I originally posted my story on Reddit, but the mod kept removing it. So here's the final chapter. Yes, my ex-wife found me. Yes, we finally talked after more than a year of total silence. And yes, her goal was to reconcile and rebuild our life. To those of you who messaged me predicting I'd become the stereotypical beta who forgives her and falls back in line, you'll be disappointed. She wrote me a long email this past week, pouring out her heart again, apologizing, begging, expressing deep regret for the affair. She asked if she could come out again and spend the weekend with me. My answer? No. I shut her down. I've been perfectly content living this solo, simple life. I love being off-grid in my remote place. I've kept things uncomplicated. I've spent time with a few good women and friends, and at 32, I don't feel any pressure to change that. I've mapped out my own path, and I plan to follow it. In my reply, I refused to give her my phone number. I laid it all out clearly. I have no interest in reconciling. She made her choice. I don't trust her. In fact, I don't even know who she is anymore. I wished her well, and said maybe, someday, she could be a friend. But that's for the future to decide. My vague tone really seemed to frustrate her. She replied one last time, and what she said was very telling. She admitted she was heartbroken by my response, but also told me she had accepted a new job, several states away. And then, she confessed her real plan all along was to get me to come with her. She knew my job was remote, that I could live anywhere I wanted, and she thought I might actually consider going with her. Her plan was to trade my independence for a fresh start in a new city, a clean slate in a brand new place. She said she had very little time left before her move and wanted to see me in person one last time, to give me the hard sell. Fortunately for me, I had to leave town for work for a week, so our time ran out. Thank God. Now she'll be out of my life again. I imagine I'll get a few more emails here and there, but eventually I think she'll understand that her time with me has expired. She'll have to move on and, who knows, maybe she'll cheat on the next guy too. Just thought I'd share the final update. So to everyone out there, live your best life, let go of the old baggage. Empower yourself to move forward and don't let anyone who broke you come back and do it again. Good luck to you all.